we are back. We are back after a break of 5 weeks. This is the longest we've been away from you guys. And हमने सोचा कि थोड़ा आप लोगों को हमसे ब्रेक की जरूरत थी, तो हम जरा दूर हो गए. But how could we end the year without returning? How could we not put you through the stress, through all the trauma of listening to our voices once again before the year ends? And so here we are. Me, Mihir Vasavda and Amit Kamath with the final game time of the year, and it's a special one. Today we'll be looking back at some of the most interesting, most captivating sports events of the year, and we've done so through a little exercise. अभी हम क्या ही इसे exercise करें, because Amit Kamath ने हमारे टीम में internally एक poll run किया, multiple choice options, people had to vote. And I'll just right away bring Amit in and he'll explain कि उसका फिर क्या हुआ.
Hi Mihir, good to be back on the podcast again. But yeah, basically what we did was we asked everybody from the sports team to recommend, to nominate moments from 2023, which they thought would be, according to them, the standout moment in sport for 2023, right? So a couple of people were very enthusiastic about the whole thing. उन्होंने 4-5, कुछ लोगों ने 7 चीजें भेजी. A couple of them were on leave, so they were like, "Boss, I'm on leave from sport, so I'm not thinking of sport right now. I have other considerations in life happening." So
I really doubt that, but yeah, we'll give them a benefit of doubt.
Exactly. So that happened. So finally, we got a list of I think 25, 28 moments. Then we asked all of the sports team. We have a 20-member robust sports team at Express Sports. We asked everybody to vote for the moment they thought was the standout moment from the list that we had presented after asking them. So according to that, now we've shortened the list to, obviously, मतलब थोड़ा सा एक चीज हो गया कि when we asked them that, a lot of people घूम फिर के इंडिया के performance at the cricket world cup पे आए. Some people widened it, they spoke about India at the World Cup. And some people went very microscopic and said, nahi, Mohammad Shami's 7-wicket haul. So either they were looking at very broad-based or they were looking at a very, very specific moment. So traversing through that, cutting, shorting, all of that, we've come up with a list of 5 moments that we think were the standout moment from sport in 2023. Mihir, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, totally. I don't know if it'll be a smart thing to list all 5 together, but हम पांचों अगर जो एक साथ बोल देंगे तो फिर आगे कोई सुनेगा नहीं, तो we'll go one by one, Amit. So the first one, I think it's perhaps, I totally agree, it is one of the best moments, not just in terms of performance, but also in terms of team spirit, companionship, empathy, जो भी आपको एकदम cliches sporting चाहिए वो आप आगे डाल सकते हो. And that one is, performance-wise, Neeraj Chopra's gold medal at the World Athletics Championship, followed by him standing his ground for Kishore Jena at the Asian Games. 2 very, very interesting picks, Amit, to start off.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the best things that stood out for me from the Asian Games was that Neeraj had a very, very good throw. It must have been around 88 or 89 meters easy, which was disallowed because the officials didn't have their ducks in order. So eventually Neeraj decides that, okay, he agrees to a rethrow because his rationale was that others जो उसके साथ compete कर रहे थे, their bodies were getting cold after they had warmed up for their own throws. So this is why the man agrees to do it. He throws his first throw again. And when there is an issue with Kishore Jina's throw, that is when he decides to make a stand. That is when he decides to go and argue with the officials. Kishore Jina also, if you remember, he was coming back to his mark saying that, okay, no throw hai. But then he basically tells them, no, go back, ask them to review the thing again and they will find that they're mistaken. So he's a superstar that I don't know, it's very hard not to root for him here.
I agree, because that night, right, in Hangzhou, we saw multiple sides to Neeraj Chopra. Performer, of course, a top-level performer. Angry Neeraj Chopra, slightly, if at all, we can call him angry in that moment. But we saw a slightly frustrated Neeraj Chopra. First time, उसे field पे हमें देखा है referees, judges के साथ argue करते हुए. Suddenly then turning into a very empathetic athlete that he is. And from there, he becomes this very strong companion. उसके लिए कुछ भी करने को तैयार टाइप का player. I mean, it was a crazy night, of course, but also we got to see multiple sides to Neeraj. And the greatest part of that was, apart from, the human side and all those things, is by the end of that evening, we had two throwers who will be genuine contenders when it comes to the Paris Olympics. Kishore ji, of course, like right now it might seem like an outsider to the party, but हमने देखा है Olympics में weird things have happened. I mean, who thought Neeraj Chopra would win a gold medal when we went into the Tokyo game? Jenna, of course, has to.
Did Neeraj Chopra think that Neeraj Chopra would win a gold medal at the Tokyo Olympics?
Seriously, Neeraj Chopra did not think he'll win a medal even before entering the stadium for the final. Remember, Amit, we'd spoken to him after the heat, and he couldn't sleep, and there were so many nerves and all those things. Weird thing these games are. So yeah, Jenna has kind of improved leaps and bounds. And that evening we saw the best version of him, and hopefully the better is yet to come.
Absolutely. Do you want to move on to the second moment, Mihir? It's also again something to do with the World Athletics Championships. This was the time when the 4x400 meter Indian relay team, went head to head with the Americans, gave them a righteous scare.
So Amit, I don't know. Again, to kind of spell out the performance, we are talking about the heat at the World Championship, where Indian runners put up a splendid show to finish second in their heat behind USA. And I'll admit, we have never seen an Indian relay team running this good. Whenever we watch those clips again, it's kind of proper goosebumps. But we also need to take into perspective that it was heats. It wasn't USA running at their fifth gear. And it wouldn't have mattered if India would have won that, or USA would have finished second in that heat or first, as long as they progress. So, bigger picture, I think a little context is required when we hype up that performance, because I think होगा ये कि जब भी Olympics आएगा, based on that performance there, काफी सारी उस पे चीजें build हो जाएगी, और मुझे वो एक सिर्फ डर है. Taking nothing away from the performance at all, because even for them to reach the final and finish, I think fifth eventually, if I'm not wrong, right? Yeah. So finishing fifth at a World Championship is great. But from that moment, I also strongly feel that wo wala part where we say that, they gave USA a scare, I'm a little skeptic about that. I don't know how you feel about it though.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree, Mihir. But then, sometimes in context के चक्कर में हम we tend to
enjoy करना भूल जाते हैं.
So yeah, which is why I'm assuming somebody nominated that from the sports team and somebody voted for it from the sports team. But that was just a moment 5.A along with the Neeraj Chopra winning the World Championship gold, which for Neeraj was, that was the one gold medal that was missing from him. He won the Under 20 World Championship, Asian Games gold, Commonwealth Games gold, Olympics gold, और World Championship में silver था. So he just needed that one medal, which he, kind of completed. Somebody mentioned in our team that he's now completed athletics. I don't know how Neeraj feels about that phrase. Yeah, but so moving on from that, we come to our second moment. Obviously, this one had to have...
Wait, Amit. Amit, I'm just interjecting and saying, I love the idea of this episode. And I'm really hoping that this list includes one of my favorite moments of 2023.
All right, cool. So we should come to that at the end, I think.
And if you end up mentioning that thing, then I'll tell you this is my thing. But if it doesn't come on, then I'll tell that to you later.
तो अजीब ही माइंड गेम्स खेल रहा है हमारा प्रोड्यूसर हमारे साथ. बट ठीक है अमित, आई थिंक वी शुड कैरी ऑन फ्रॉम वेयर वी वर. होपफुली इट विल बी शशांक डजंट वॉच अ लॉट ऑफ स्पोर्ट, तो आई डोंट नो उसको फ्रिस्बी चाहिए रहेगा या क्या चाहिए रहेगा इन दिस, बट वील सी व्हाट इज इट दैट ही लाइक्ड दिस ईयर.
ऑलराइट. Okay, so basically we finished two moments from 2023 now. Let's come to our third moment, once again from the Asian Games. And this time it was Satwik and Chirag winning, the men's doubles gold. An incredible year the pair has had. They've become the first Indian men's doubles pair, at least not just men's doubles. In fact, they've just become the first doubles pair from India to become the world number one. So an incredible year for both Satwik and Chirag. And I think I should take that moment to ask my producer, Shashank, was that the moment you were looking for?
No, that was not the moment.
Oh, well, we'll see. It's a shame, Shashank, that wasn't your moment, because I think for a majority of Indians, that was one of the biggest moments of this year. Again, I think Shivani Naik wrote a beautiful line, I remember, in her piece analyzing Satwik and Chirag's gold medal. We should perhaps, if possible, put the link to that story in the show notes. She basically compared that moment. So when Satwik Sairaj began playing, right? The story was that his father was watching a match involving a Chinese player. The Chinese player won in celebration, threw his racket in the crowd. His father caught that racket, gave it to Satwik, who went on to play with that racket in the early part, in his childhood days. And then the full circle, in a way, is complete when Satwik Sairaj and Chirag Shetty, they come to China. They are playing in Hangzhou against some of the top pairs and they win. Satwik breaks into this crazy dance, throws his racket into the stands. And I'm just curious to see who was the child that caught the racket or the father that caught that racket. And maybe 10 years from now, who knows what story will emerge from there, Amit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we have any Indian athletes listening to this, please stop throwing your paraphernalia into the crowds, especially when you're surrounded by foreign fans. If you're in India with completely dominant Indian fan base, throw whatever you want, that's fine. But we don't want other people inspire करना जरूरी नहीं है. अपने हिंदुस्तानियों को inspire करो. We have 1.4 billion people to inspire. तो थोड़ा मतलब let's keep the inspiration in house is what I'm saying.
Yeah. घर से शुरू होता है inspiration.
All right. But yeah, obviously, it was one of the moments, and it's a pity we could not have had Shivani today here to talk about the significance of that moment, as only she can. Shivani is on leave. So, I mean, Mihir, that's our cue.
I mean, just before we move to the next one, right, I also kind of thought it will be a nice thing to look forward to as well, as to what 2024 promises for Satwik and Chirag, because I can't recall the last time we spoke so confidently about an Indian athlete going into an Olympics, जिसे हम कह सकते हैं कि ये गोल्ड मेडल पोटेंशियल है, लाइक गोल्ड मेडल के एक्चुअल दावेदार है. 2016 none of us could say confidently about Sindhu. 2020 it was the same thing. Like, of course they were contenders, but at least in my opinion we couldn't confidently say that XYZ would win a gold medal.
I think Mihir, at least in 2020 a lot of people, मतलब उन्होंने तो ऐसा मतलब बोल ही दिया था कि पहले दिन पे सौरभ चौधरी का गोल्ड आना है.
हाँ, true, but again, like, if we had to cut through the hype, तो हमें पता था कि medal आएगा. We didn't know if it was to be a gold. Whereas यहाँ पर हमें पता है कि if they have their day, they can actually go and get the gold.
And absolute. I mean, they've already proven it against, I believe, every pair there is at the top level. It's just a pairing that clicks on every level. And I believe they've also had success in Paris before. They've had success at the French Open, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the same venue that will be used for the Paris Olympics.
Yeah, I guess so. So that will be something that we'll be following closely, of course, through the next year. And we'll also be doing a slightly looking into 24, the entire season episode next week. So watch out for that. It's a shameless plug for next week. Yes, Amit, we can now move on to the next one.
All right. Obviously, it was a year when we had way too much cricket, and that's not going to change for the year coming ahead, obviously. But yeah, so obviously, India hosted the World Cup, reached all the way to the final, had a heartbreak, just like in 2003, 20 years ago, where an Australian team absolutely outclassed them in the final. So it would be very difficult not to have any moments from that World Cup in this list. And no surprise that two moments from that make it to this list. The first one is, it's a very symbolic moment for the bigger moment. It was Mohammad Shami taking 7 wickets against New Zealand in the semi-finals of the Cricket World Cup. And it's a moment that, is a harbinger of a bigger trend that we saw at the Cricket World Cup, where for a change, Indian pacers were absolutely dominant. And you don't usually say that about Indian pacers. You don't usually say that about Indian pacers in Indian conditions. So that was a very, very pleasant change. And that basically went from match number 1 till the penultimate match of the World Cup that India played in. And then in the final, everything went well. We all know how that ended.
Of course, yeah, the heartbreak that we'll talk about, but that Shami spell, Amit, it was incredible. It's one of the best pieces of sportsmanship तो नहीं कहूँगा, art जो एक कहते हैं sportsman का, I've ever seen, because when we look back, we can contextualize better and stuff. Just the sheer desperation that India were in at that moment. I can remember Rohit Sharma के हाथ में जो भी ball था between overs, and उसने जो तरीके से toss किया शमी के तरफ, it was almost like desperation. वो मन में ही please बोल रहा था शमी को कि यार इन्हें out कर दे, because at that moment New Zealand were pretty much going for India's target. It was well within their reach, even though मतलब किसी ने सोचा नहीं होगा कि 398 कोई चेज कर सकता है वर्ल्ड कप के सेमीफाइनल में, बट उस तरीके की बैटिंग की थी वहां पर उन्होंने. Bankhade had gone silent. There was like palpable tension. You look anywhere and you could see like thoda sa ekdam nervous chehre, and they didn't know what they thought was a sure shot win at the innings break would turn into a crazy defeat. And in that sense, then Shami comes in and उसका एक बॉल ऑफ कोर्स आई रिमेम्बर जो उसने टॉम लेथम को भी डाला था, वो थोड़ा सा ऑफ स्टंप के बाहर बॉल की ट्रेजेक्टरी थी, बॉल वहां से उसने शुरू किया मूव करना, फिर सडनली लेथम खेलने जा रहा है और एकदम it cuts in, and Latham is then trapped in front of the stumps and he's out LBW. I mean, Beckham पीछे बैठा हुआ था शमी के, he was there for that match. He would have been proud with that swing. It was incredible. I mean, then the fact that he went on to get 7 wickets and also the fact कि उसने कितने सारे records उस रात को break किए थे, right? I mean, first he became the first Indian bowler to take 50 wickets at a World Cup. He was the quickest to reach that milestone in the tournament's history. His figures that evening, 7 wickets for 57 runs or so. They were the best by an Indian at a World Cup. बहुत सारी चीजें थी, and he did that after sitting out for quite a few matches at the start of the tournament. So incredible year, incredible World Cup for Shami. Unfortunately, I think it can be a good segue. It ended in a very, very massive heartbreak for him, the 10 other teammates of his, and billion Indians, and also the 100,000 who were inside the stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. But before we get to the final moment, of our countdown, just a notable mention to the moments that did not make it through but were in the running. From the Asian Games, we had incredible moments, obviously, where we had a bronze in the women's doubles table tennis event with Sutirtha and Ayika Mukherjee, it was a shock bronze, not even a surprise bronze. We had the equestrian dressage team winning us a medal, a gold medal. The squash men's team winning us a gold medal. Angie Sojan winning us a women's long jump medal. We had, that dramatic silver medal that Jyoti Araji basically fought, to win. Before she actually ran, she had to actually fight her way through it. We had Sumit Antil at the Asian Para Games smashing the world record once again. And now coming to the Cricket World Cup, obviously we had, Virat Kohli going past Sachin Tendulkar in Mumbai at the Wankhede Stadium in terms of centuries. We had Glenn Maxwell scoring that double 100 once again at the Wankhede. Imagine what sort of a year it has been that something like a Virat Kohli going past Tendulkar or a Glenn Maxwell scoring a double century is not even there in the top 5. We had obviously Sania Mirza reaching the Australian Open final. We had Nikhat Zareen winning a gold medal in the World Boxing Championship. It was also history in other senses because we had the Women's Premier League starting this time. And I think for Mihir, one of the personal moments was hearing the noise at Rourkela for the World Cup game. I think he heard it in person. And for me, I think one of my personal favorites, the moment that stood out was when Magnus Carlsen interrupted his own game to walk out all the way up to Pragyananda at a chess World Cup, just to pat him on the back and say that, today I want to be like you, which was a big moment. I mean, it's the world champion, the guy who's, been at a level where no other chess player has reached, walking all the way up to an upstart teenage grandmaster from India and telling him that, today I want to be like you. I mean, all of these things, including the 100 medals that India won at the Asian Games, I know everybody in the journalism fraternity was very, very cynical about whether India will win 100 medals, and they somehow managed to do it. So these were the moments that did not make it to the top 5. Before we come to the actual first number 1 moment, Shashank, did I manage to hit that secret moment of yours with this whole list that I just read out?
Not yet, man. Not yet. These are all great moments, but not yet.
बता ही दे यार अब क्या है.
Shashank, I think you should go first.
हम लोग उसे ही top moment बना देंगे. Yeah. This is the top moment of the year.
Okay. I'll tell you my favorite sporting moment of 2023. Do you guys remember the Delhi States Athletics Championship in September?
Yeah.
That is my moment. For listeners who don't remember, basically this athletics meet was supposed to happen, and when the participants found out that the doping officials, basically the NADA officials, were going to visit the event, a lot of them didn't even show up. Okay, and in the 100 meters race, only a single participant ran the race. And later on, we found out that he also failed the dope test. And plus, there was one steeplechase athlete who kept running, beyond the finish line to await the doping test. That is my favorite moment. Bigger than this Kohli, bigger than Shami, as crime.
I totally agree with you, and I think this should be the top moment of the year. I veto everything else that's been voted for.
Well, that moment was brought to you by Mr. Andrew Amsan, who clearly had a private word with Mr. Shashank Bhargava to put in that moment in the list. It was not even recommended by Andrew Amsan himself, by the way, when we asked him for recommendations. But clearly, Mr. Shashank Bhargava has... I think Mihir, अपना जो top moment है उससे अच्छा यही better है, right?
100 times, यार. India हारती रहेगी, जीतती रहेगी. That cycle will go on forever. I don't think something like this is ever going to happen, at least in India. I don't know rest of the world, but कभी नहीं होगा ऐसा, I guess. I hope ना हो ऐसा.
Dude, इसमें crime है, इसमें humor है, इसमें drama है, इसमें sportsmanship है, इसमें hope है, इसमें struggle है, सब कुछ है.
It's like one of those Anurag Kashyap movies.
And it has a last minute twist as well, because eventually हमको समझ में आता that the last guy who actually ran, he ended up failing a dope test as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we should have the link to this story as well in the show notes.
Alright, well, on that note, I think before we end, we should still just mention what our top moment was supposed to be, but now has been completely pushed, edged down or made to fall down from the podium.
Out of all the top moments.
It's basically top pe tha, abhi it's been kicked out from the top 5 as well. That moment, by the way, was Pat Cummins winning the toss at the Cricket World Cup final and deciding to field first, which was, when that happened, everybody was like, boss, tum kya kar rahe ho? You are basically, aap Rohit Sharma ko ek assist de rahe ho to ensure that they win the World Cup. But yeah, that does not sound as significant as the one that Shashank has just...
that's what I was just going to say, Amit. Would Pat Cummins keep on running if a dope tester was chasing him? That's the question. If no, then no. This is not the best moment of the year.
In cricket, dope testers बहुत कम ही आते हैं players के पास.
Regardless.
Well, on that note, Mihir, I guess it's time for us to say goodbye and also declare that we are back with this episode of Game Time Podcast. We'll be back again next week. This time we'll be doing something slightly different as we look forward to 2024. Shashank, any thoughts on what we should be doing on 2024?
We'll let that be a surprise for our listeners, just like this list was.
And just before we say goodbye, a shout out for, I think the only person who openly said he missed us, Mr. Keshav Sunkara, a very loyal listener of this, a friend of the pod. Keshav ji, I hope you're glad that we are back. I hope you had a great year and you'll have an even better 24. So here's a shout out to you. And for the rest who missed us but did not write to us, well, this is your loss because आपका नाम इस पे आने से रह गया और इससे बड़ा क्या achievement होता आपका ये साल का. So on that note, Amit, shall we call it a year?
No, wait, but all is not lost yet. If you have a moment that you think should have made it to our list, now that you heard our entire list and our top 5 and the secret surprise winner who came out of nowhere and kept on running all the way to the podium, if you have a moment that you think should have been in the list, please do, tweet to us. Please do, if you prefer sending owls with letters to their feet, do send that across to Shashank Bhargava, our producer, who is very kind enough to usually read all messages and emails that come his way.
Perfect. And I think on that note, we should call it a day, call it a year. Thanks for being with us throughout this year. It's been a crazy sports year. I hope we just provided some entertainment, if not matched the entertainment on field. But we will continue doing that next year because it's going to be one hell of a year once again. We have the T20 World Cup and the Olympics and what not. So we'll be back next week. Looking forward to something really interesting. Do tune in. Thank you for listening.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.